Sorry for the background. We're on the road, but it's going to be a lockout. The lockout is happening. We're talking about owners, and they're still playing the public game. Okay, they're running to media members and leaking out certain information that they feel is going to win them the view in public perception. We are talking about owners saying that if they agree to what the WNBA players are asking them to sign, they will face a
$700 million in losses. That's the number WNBA owners just leaked to ESPN, claiming that's what they'll lose if they agree to the players' demands. Not 70 million, 700 million. And according to those same owners, that's more money than the entire league has lost in its first 29 years of existence combined. The players' union immediately fired back, calling that figure absolutely false. So we've got owners running to the media with apocalyptic loss projections and players calling them liars. And the deadline to get a deal done, January 9th. That's less than 2 weeks away.
Association over a new CBA near January 9th deadline. The sides remain far apart on several key issues. Okay, now these several key issues, my thing is, how are we still far apart? That is what I'm trying to understand. And this update is from Alexa Philippou just a couple hours ago. And I kind of want to circle back to something that she had posted up, and then I'll get back to this article, and where she said it also includes.
Here's where the battle lines are drawn. The players want 30% of gross revenue. Gross revenue means the total money coming in before any expenses get subtracted. Their proposal includes a salary cap of $10.5 million per team in the first year. To put that in perspective, the current salary cap is around $1.4 million. They're asking for a seven-fold increase. The owners, they're offering something completely different. They want to give players 50%, but here's the catch. 50% of net revenue. Net revenue means after all expenses get taken out. Charter flights, facility costs, marketing budgets, everything gets subtracted first. Then the players get half of what's left.
I don't see the owners are not going to sign this. They're not going to do this, man. They're not going to do this. So, I don't see how the players believe that a deal is going to get done like this. It says multiple sources familiar with the negotiations told ESPN on Wednesday that WNBA is projecting that a recent proposal from the WNBPA, which would give players about 30% of gross and is believed to feature approximately $10.5 million salary cap, will result in $700 million in losses over the course.
Look at those specific numbers from the league's December 18th proposal. Maximum salaries starting at $1.3 million, growing to nearly $2 million over the life of the deal. Average salaries beginning at $550,000, climbing to $780,000. Minimum salaries over $250,000 in year one. The salary cap would start at $5 million and grow with revenue. Now compare that to what the players proposed on November 28th. Their document showed a projected salary cap of $12.5 million. The gap between $5 million and $12.5 million, that's not a negotiation gap. That's a canyon. And this is exactly why he's saying the owners will never sign it. These aren't positions you can split down the middle.
Transaction that generates zero net revenue. New teams are out the expansion fee but earn a fractional share of future league revenue, while pre-existing teams get a portion of the fee but lose a fractional share of future league revenue. The unions proposed, so the players are looking at all of this new money that is being, these owners buying these teams for $250 million, and they're trying to count that into the money, and the league is saying no, that does not count, because all the teams get a fee and then the teams lose a percentage of league revenue, so it gets broken down type of thing. So
the expansion fee fight reveals just how far apart these sides really are. Portland and Toronto paid to join in. Cleveland, Detroit, and Philadelphia each paid $250 million. That's $750 million in expansion fees hitting the league's bank account over the next few years. The players' union wants to count that money. They see 750 million coming in and think that should factor into revenue calculations. Makes sense from their perspective. Real money, real revenue. But the league has a completely different accounting philosophy. They claim expansion fees generate zero net revenue. Their logic? Yes. New teams pay the fee, but existing teams lose a fractional share of future league revenue when you divide the pie into more slices. Meanwhile, new teams get a share of future revenue despite paying the fee up front. So, in the league's math, it all washes out to zero.
Heard Courtney Williams and a bunch of other people complaining about that. The league wants to take all the expenses out and then give them 50% of what's left and all this stuff, whatever. Right? Here it says the last reported WNBA proposal from December 18th featured an uncapped revenue sharing component, a raise of maximum salaries over 1.3 million and growing to nearly 2 million over the life of the deal, average salaries to above 530,000 and growing to more than 780,000 over the life of the deal, and minimum salaries more than $250,000 in the first year alone. The salary cap will be $5 million in the first year and grow in line with revenue growth in the years afterward.
That phrase right there is critical. They're still playing the public game because that's exactly what's happening. Owners leak the 700 million loss projection to Alexa Philippou at ESPN. That story drops, and suddenly the narrative shifts. Fans start thinking the players are being unreasonable. Social media lights up with people saying the WNBA can't afford these demands. Then the union counters, calling the projection false. They release their own document showing different math, different assumptions, different conclusions. Now fans don't know who to believe. This is classic labor negotiation theater. Both sides know the real negotiating happens behind closed doors. But public perception matters because it affects leverage. If fans turn against the players, that pressure influences the negotiation. If fans support the players, owners face backlash for being cheap. So they're both leaking strategic information to shape the narrative.
I don't know. But it does not seem like we're going to have a 2026 WNBA season with the state of where things are. Here it says WNBPA President Nneka Ogwumike told ESPN December 19th, though, that the league's revenue share model is not adequate. The union is proposing a system based on gross revenue, defined as revenues before subtracting expenses, giving players about 30%. The WNBPA believes that players who provide the labor and have no control over business expenses shouldn't be paid last. According to a document obtained by ESPN that was shared with players, WNBPA proposed a compensation system.
Watch that timeline. January 9th deadline. This video is being made in late December or early January based on the context. That means we're talking about days, not weeks. And they're still describing the sides as far apart on several key issues. In labor negotiations, you typically see one of two patterns. Either the sides are making steady progress and you hear optimistic statements about being close, or they're stuck and the rhetoric gets hostile. What we're seeing here is the hostile pattern. Leaked, lost projections, public accusations of lying, fundamental disagreements about how to even count revenue. The phrase far apart this close to a deadline typically means one thing. Someone's preparing for a work stoppage.
A deal to get done. I do not believe that a deal gets done by January 9th. I want you to get down in the comments. Let me know what you think. Do you think we are headed for a strike/lockout? Do you believe the owners when they say if they sign this agreement?
And there it is. The question every WNBA fan needs to be asking right now. Are we headed for a lockout? Let's break down what a lockout actually means and why it's looking increasingly inevitable. Then we'll talk about what happens if the 2026 season doesn't start on time. First, understand the difference between a strike and a lockout. A strike is when players refuse to play. A lockout is when owners refuse to let players play. Legally, it's a crucial distinction. Practically, the result is the same for fans. No basketball. Here's why a lockout is the likely scenario. The current CBA expires, and without a new agreement, the owners can lock the players out. They control the facilities, the schedules, the infrastructure. The players' leverage is their labor, but they can't strike if they're locked out. They're just unemployed until a deal gets done. Now let's talk about the $700 million claim, because this number is doing a lot of work in the owner's argument. The league says agreeing to the players' November 28th proposal would result in $700 million in losses over the term of the deal. They specifically note this exceeds the combined losses of the league's first 29 years. That's a carefully crafted message. It's designed to make the players' demands sound catastrophic. But let's examine what's actually being said. First, losses over the term of the deal matters because we don't know how long the term is. Is this a 5-year deal? 7 years? 10 years? If it's a 10-year deal, $700 million in losses is $70 million per year. If it's a 5-year deal, it's $140 million per year. Context matters. Second, the comparison to 29 years of losses is misleading. The WNBA's early years were startup years with minimal revenue. Comparing losses from 1997, when the league had 8 teams and tiny TV deals, to projected losses in 2026 when the league has 15 teams and a major media rights deal is apples and oranges. Third, and this is crucial, the union calls this figure absolutely false. They're not saying it's exaggerated or pessimistic. They're saying it's false. That's a strong word. The union believes the owners are using accounting tricks to inflate the loss projection. This is where the expansion fee dispute becomes critical. If you don't count $750 million in expansion fees as revenue, but you do count all the expenses of operating 15 teams, your math shows massive loss. But if you include expansion fees, suddenly the picture looks very different. The union's position makes logical sense. Cleveland just paid $250 million to join the league. That's real, really, that actually exists. The argument that it generates zero net revenue because of future revenue sharing is an accounting fiction. Yes, revenue gets divided among more teams in the future, but $250 million hit the bank account today. Think about it this way. If you run a business and someone pays you $250 million for partial ownership, you don't tell your employees, sorry, that doesn't count as revenue. You absolutely count. The WNBA's position is essentially that expansion fees are some special category that exists outside normal revenue. The players aren't buying it. Now let's look at the actual proposals on the table. The league's December 18th offer had specific numbers. Maximum salary of $1.3 million in year 1. That's actually a significant increase from the current max of around $240,000. Growing to nearly $2 million over the life of the deal is substantial growth. Average salaries starting at $550,000 is more than double the current average of around $200,000. Minimum salaries over $250,000 is roughly triple the current minimum of around $65,000. And a salary cap of $5 million growing with revenue gives teams real flexibility to build competitive rosters. On paper, that sounds generous. But here's what the players see. The WNBA just signed a new media rights deal, reportedly worth around $200 million per year, that's roughly triple the current deal. Attendance is up, merchandise sales are exploding. Caitlin Clark's rookie season brought unprecedented attention and revenue. The business is growing exponentially. So when owners offer to double or triple salaries, players are thinking, you're tripling TV revenue and only doubling our pay. The players want to lock in a percentage of gross revenue, specifically, so they benefit proportionally as the business grows. If revenue triples again in 5 years, they want their salaries to triple too. Automatically, the owner's net revenue model gives them control. They can increase expenses, which reduces net revenue, which limits salary growth. The players don't trust that model because they've seen decades of the WNBA claiming poverty, while NBA owners subsidized the league and wrote off the losses. This is really about power and control. The players want a system where they can look at the league's total revenue and know exactly what their share is. Transparent, automatic, tied to business growth. The owners want flexibility to manage expenses and control costs. They're offering more money, but they want to decide how much more based on their accounting. Here's what makes this particularly difficult to resolve. Both sides have legitimate points. The owners are right that the WNBA has never been profitable as a standalone business. They're right that rapid salary growth without corresponding revenue growth could be financially dangerous. They're right that expenses matter and you can't just ignore them. But the players are right that the business is at an inflection point. They're right that expansion fees represent real money. They're right that they've been underpaid for decades while being told to be patient. They're right that this is their moment of maximum leverage. And if they don't get a fair deal now, they might never get one. The problem is that fair means completely different things to each side. To owners, fair means we'll pay you more when we can prove the business can afford it. To players, fair means we get a fixed percentage of the revenue we help generate. Period. Those philosophies are fundamentally incompatible. You can't split the difference between gross revenue percentage and net revenue percentage. You have to pick one model or the other, and neither side is willing to accept the other's model. So what happens if they don't reach a deal by January 9th? The most likely scenario is the owners lock out the players and training camps don't open. The season is supposed to start in mid-May. That gives them about 4 months to figure it out. But here's the danger. Once you cancel games, you start losing revenue. Lost revenue makes the financial picture worse, which makes both sides more desperate and more entrenched. We've seen this in other leagues. The NBA lost half a season in the NHL lost the entire 2004-2005 season. These work stoppages damage the sport. Fans lose interest. Sponsors get nervous. Media partners start questioning their investments. The WNBA can't afford that kind of damage right now, not when momentum is finally building. But here's the thing. The players know that too, and they're betting that the owners won't risk killing the golden goose right when it's starting to lay golden eggs. Caitlin Clark just brought millions of new fans. Ratings are up. Expansion fees are flowing in. This is the worst possible time for the owners to lock out the players. And the players know it. That's leverage. The players are essentially saying, you need us more than we need you right now. And they might be right, because if there's no 2026 season, all that momentum died. Clark's second season was supposed to build on her rookie year. Paige Bickers is entering the draft. The new TV deal kicks in. You can't get that moment back. So my prediction, this goes down to the wire, maybe past the wire. We might see training camps delayed. We might see the season start pushed back. But I don't think we see a full lockout, because the owners have too much to lose. They'll cave on some version of revenue sharing that gives players more than net revenue, but less than 30% of growth. Something like 25% of adjusted gross, where certain expenses get deducted but expansion fees count. A compromise that lets both sides claim victory. But if I'm wrong, if we hit January 9th and there's no deal, start preparing for a long fight. Because once you lock players out, egos get involved. Pride gets involved. Nobody wants to blink first. And that's when you lose entire seasons. Let's hope these sides are smarter than that. The WNBA finally has momentum. Don't waste it on a labor war that nobody wins.